But we are talking about today converting old photos to digital format. In other words, scanning photos. So there are different ways that you can do that, and we're going to go through all of those. Number one, we'll talk about using a scanner to scan a photo that you have, a print photo that you have, onto your computer or onto a portable storage device. We'll also talk about mobile apps that serve as photo scanners that you can try out too if you have maybe just a handful of photos you're scanning. We'll also talk about the option of taking your photos somewhere or shipping them somewhere to be scanned for you. And ultimately, the goal here is for you to be able to preserve your old photos in digital format for long-term safekeeping. But I just want to stop there before we dive into this to see if anybody has any specific things they wanted to learn about on this topic today, anything they're struggling with scanning photos or. No? Okay. All right. Well, my colleague Connor is here. And in fact, Paul, he just dropped in the chat a link to the Zoom virtual backgrounds class that my colleague Bob teaches. So anybody's interested in that, we have that class coming up. And I will be tracking questions in the chat with Connor's help, and he'll also be able to help you out with any Zoom issues you have, anything that might interfere with you enjoying the class. And again, one last time, anybody who might be in the lounge, please feel free to hit join Zoom, and that will bring you here into the live studio with us. Okay. So just want to go over the basics of how scanners work. So you may have scanned a lot of photos in the past, but what's actually happening when you do that? Scanners are essentially analyzing an image. Sometimes that may just be a document, paper document of some sort, but a lot of times, and what we're going to be talking about today, are images, photos, and they analyze it and process it into a digital file, typically a JPEG. JPEG is the standard digital picture format. There's also GIF and PNG, but most of the time it just defaults to JPEG. And then you get results like this. I've recently been doing a lot of scanning for a tribute video I put together for my father. And so I was digging up photos at my mother's house from back into the 1930s, and was able to get results like this. I'm pretty happy with this. I think, especially with old black and white photos, sometimes scanners can do a pretty nice job. But there's another one. My dad was a big baseball player back in high school. And these are more recent photos. This is probably from the early 2000s when I was still using a film camera, a film DSLR, before I converted to digital. And same with this one. So these are the kind of results you get. These originated as print photos that I took with a film camera and then got developed. So to do this, you've got a few options. If you don't happen to own a scanner, you can just go to a local retail outlet or your public library with a USB flash drive, something very portable. I'm sure you've seen these if you don't own several yourself. I've got, I don't know how many tucked away in a drawer here in my desk, but they cost anywhere from $10 to maybe $15, depending on the capacity. And then you can just go ahead and stick that go to their photo department, stick that thumb drive into the scanner, scan the photo and save it to that thumb drive, and then take it home. Typical cost per scan, generally hovers around 25 cents. So not bad at all. And if you have a membership at your local public library, you can oftentimes do it for free. They'll have scanners there that allow you to do that. And conversely, you can get a home scanner, and that can take various forms. But these are a couple of examples of photo scanners, specifically designed to take scans of photos rather than documents. Some are these flatbed scanners that you just open up to stick a photo into to scan it that way. Others are like this. It's sort of like gradual scan. You stick a photo into a slot and it feeds through here and scans it that way. Many times you can just stick a thumb drive into the side of these, but a lot of times they work with your home network. So you can save them directly to your computer without having to go through the process of putting them on one device and then going over and transferring them from that device over into your computer. There are also these all-in-one printers. And they've been kind of the standard, I think, for the last probably the last decade or so. This is one that I've got. It is already a dinosaur. I've had it for about 10 years, but it functions as both a home, as a printer, as well as a photocopier and a scanner. And I can scan documents or photos or whatever I want on that.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
Going back to that picture, the one in the middle. I think that does slides as well.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to talk about that because many of the options you have out there will do slides. They will do film. I think some will even do negatives.
Okay, because I used to have that, and I had it did slides, but I don't have one now that has that function. So I was going to ask you how to do that. So
yeah, that would be a good option. With the other one I'm going to talk about, Paul, is the option of sending it away if you've got boxes and boxes of slides,
right?
Because it may be so cumbersome that I have never tried to scan a slide myself with anything other than there is a mobile app out there that claims to scan slides. Quite honestly, it does a pretty lousy job. And so I would not recommend trying to do it with your phone, even though it says that it can do that. But I can't say from experience how these work with slides and negatives and things like that, but they do. If you do your research, and I'll have lots of resources for you in the class notes, so you can do some homework before making a purchase on any of these. I would imagine they do a pretty nice job of getting things that aren't just a plain old photo that you've got tucked in a photo album. Couple of steps you might want to take before you actually do the scan is to wipe the scanner bed. It's easy to forget to do that, but sometimes the scanner will pick up flecks of dust or something like that on the photo itself. You can get one of these microfiber cloths. I get these every time I get a new pair of glasses. They throw them into the case that they give me. And that does a really nice job of cleaning the bed without scratching it. I also sometimes will dust off the photo, depending on how you've been storing it. It may have collected a little bit of dust too. So one other thing, those microfiber cloths will do that really nicely, no scratches or anything. And then you are either going to place the photo in the scanner bed face down and shut the lid and start the scan, or in some cases you can put it in that slot and just feed it through there. And then you hit scan, follow the commands. You can do this if you're doing it on a home network on your computer. It will actually scan the photo directly to your desktop or laptop computer. And then you just decide where you want to save that on your computer. So let's talk a little bit more about what is happening when the scan is going on. Photos, any kind of digital image is made up of these tiny dots of ink. And if you ever remember learning about how photos are printed in newspapers and magazines, even pictures in comic books, they're made up of these little tiny dots of ink. Those get converted essentially to pixels. So these little squares are data, and all of those squares of data make up the image. So that's essentially what's happening with the scan. It's going from a print product to a JPEG or some other digital image format. So with that in mind, if you are given the option, and most of the time you are with a scan, I would recommend going with the resolution of 300 PPI or DPI. That's pixels per inch, or sometimes it's listed as DPI, which is digital pixels per inch. Most of the photos that you might have sitting in boxes that you want to get scanned or in photo albums are probably at that 300 PPI range. This is a minimum that I use when I was a magazine editor. Any pictures we ran, we had to have in 300 PPI format to get good print quality. But that is going to be where you're going to get the best scan most of the time. Going lower will leave out details. And then you won't get quite as pristine a scan. And on the flip side, going higher than that, and a lot of times you will be given the option of going up to, I'd say 1200 DPI, maybe even higher than that. But that's more than the photo actually has. So it's probably going to bring in more noise, so to speak, more details in that photo than what actually exists. So you're going to get poor results. It might look a little grainier than you would like. So that's something to consider. I think our inclination, our first instinct is to try to go with the highest possible resolution, that PPI, but that resolution option can sometimes often exceed what is actually in that print photo. So I'll just walk you through what I have to do. And I think this is getting to be an old way of doing this, but it's the only thing I had to show as a visual. I place a photo face down on the scanner bed and shut the lid. This is an all-in-one printer again. And then I go over here and I hit scan. Now this is all through my home network. So from there, I go over to my computer and I open up through my just my system preferences. I go over and select my printer, and then I'm going to hit scan to make that scan and save it directly to my computer. And when that happens, this will pop up, all of these options. If I wanted to say, for whatever reason, wanted to do this in black and white, I could do that. And here I've got the resolution option. And when I click this drop down box, you'll see that I've got other options here, up to 1200 DPI, but I'm going to stick with that sweet spot of 300 DPI. Okay. So I've got a list here of some of the top rated photo scanners out on the market right now. I won't go into detail on every one of these, but I'll have a link, a couple of links in the class notes for you to go to get reviews on different scanners that are out on the market right now. So that can help you with shopping for anything new if you're in the market for one. Canon and Epson are both really great on this count. They've got several different types of scanners, including a portable scanner. And then Kodak. Yes, Kodak is still around. They really missed the boat with digital photography, but they are trying to catch up with scanners. So they have a digital film and slide scanner. So if you've got some pictures in those formats, this might be a good option for you. There is also something called the Viewpoint Magic Wand, which I've heard mixed reviews about. Somebody who took this class was talking about it and absolutely raved about it. Somebody else said they're not that thrilled with it, but what it really is kind of a hybrid between a mobile scanner and a regular slot type photo scanner. You just take the literally a wand and sort of slowly wave it over the picture, and it will capture it in digital format. Now, it may be that some people just go over it too fast or something like that, and that's why they get a poorer quality than what they hoped for. But that costs about $100. I would say, depending on what you're looking for, you could spend up to $300, but it's all based on what your needs are and how much scanning you're going to do. If you've only got a few photos to scan, it may not even be worth buying one if you don't own one. You might be better off just going to the library. And then you have these all-in-one printers, HPs, and of course, Canon and Epson. One thing that I have run into as an Apple user, we got this HP printer back in like 2010, 2011. And I had a MacBook Pro, and it worked fine with that printer for a long time. I upgraded to a new MacBook Pro about 2 years ago, and it will not work with my HP printer. It reads it as malware. And when I try to print something, it basically stalls me from doing that. I've had other people tell me that they have HP printers with MacBooks and they have no problem whatsoever. I think it may be an interface problem, and some of this is my own guess, an interface problem between the newer operating systems for Macs and older HP printers. And I think there is a list out there somewhere that lists the HP printers that will not work with Macs. So I just want to point that out in case you are a Mac user and are in the market for a new printer. Okay, so I'm going to stop there just to see if there are any questions so far. No. Okay. Okay. All right. Then you also have the option of having somebody else do this work for you. And if you've got, some of you may be in the boat I am. I have boxes and boxes and boxes of old photos sitting in my attic. And I mentioned I was scanning a lot of old photos of my father from his childhood on. And I did that on my own, but it was really tedious. And I kind of did it in a rush to put together this tribute slideshow for him. But if you've got the luxury of time, you're willing to spend a little money, and you want to save yourself some labor, this might be a way to go. You might want to just type into Google photo scanning services and see if anything shows up in your local area. Then you can just take all of those photos into that location and have them do it that way. Your other alternative is to ship them to a service and they will do the scanning for you. The benefits of this is that you get really professional results. They're going to have state-of-the-art equipment, and they can even make fixes to photos that might have some damage to them. Say you've got maybe a photo was sitting in a photo album, and when you took off that transparency that goes over all of each page, It took a little bit of the photo with it. So you've got, some of it missing, or you've got a crease or a crack on that photo. They will restore those and make them look like they were essentially brand new, or at least undamaged. And you've got someone else doing all that tedious work for you. They can be expensive, however. They charge not only up to $1 per scan, and it could even be more depending on the format of the pictures you're wanting scanned. If they're in slide format, if they're just negatives or film, you may be paying more. So that's something to take into consideration. And the other option, or the other issue, is that they will charge you for the digital storage. Now that could be a thumb drive or a portable hard drive that they send back to you with those pictures when they're done scanning them, or they will put them on the internet in a secure spot where you can go to download them. Either way, they're going to charge you for that. And I don't know what the charges are, probably all over the map, but that means that you could, somebody told me they spent like $500 getting a bunch of photos scanned using one of these services. So if it's worth it to you, that's an investment that will preserve all those photos for you, but it is going to cost a little bit. So there are several scanning services out there that get a lot of buzz. Scan Cafe, Scan My Photos, and Legacy Box have all been around for a few years now. And I've heard people say good things about Legacy Box. I have not talked with anybody who has used Scan Cafe or Scan My Photos, but I would imagine they're all competitors, so they're all going to try to compete on quality. Another one that I recently discovered is called Forever, and they offer you online storage too. So like permanent online storage. So I'm sure there's a fee that comes with that, but that way all of those photos that they've scanned will stay in a secure spot on the internet. So why would you want to do that? Number one, it's going to take up less space on your own computer. And number two, I always like to paint these disaster scenarios, talk about being gloomy Gus, but just something to think about to disaster proof your life. If you have, one of the reasons we're doing this, right, is to preserve photos that you might otherwise lose in, say, a fire or a flood in the home, and they're gone. So digitizing them means that at least they're stored in digital format someplace else. But if you're just storing them on your computer, what if there's a fire in your home and your computer is destroyed? Then the whole process was a waste of time for you in scanning all those. So having them in the cloud, so to speak, is a pretty nice option to have. And then Story Gifts is another one that will also do the organizing for you. I'll have links to all these in the class notes that I send out afterward. But I think you have to give them a few specs before they start to do that organizing. Just kind of give them an indication how you want those organized. But once they have that, they do all of that for you. A lot of us, when we do scan these photos, we want to put them in specific albums or specific categories. This is a way to get that all done without having to spend a lot of time yourself sorting them. Okay. Any questions on those services? No? Okay. Again, feel free to drop a question in the chat too, if you're more comfortable with that. And lastly, let's talk about mobile scanning apps. These allow you to scan a photo using your smartphone. You don't always get quite the same resolution you would with a flatbed scanner. And part of that is that it is incorporating oftentimes your phone's camera, even though it is a scan, not necessarily just taking a snapshot of that photo. But you're not going to have the same power in a mobile phone that you would in a scanner. The other thing that sometimes is difficult is that in some cases, the scanners aren't really good at minimizing glare, because you're doing this in open ambient light rather than sticking it into a flatbed scanner and closing the lid so there's no outside light coming in. So you may get some ambient light glare right on that photo, which doesn't look great. Some apps are much better at minimizing that compared to others. In some cases, if you've got a photo in a frame, sometimes it will even minimize the glare coming off of the glass on that frame. But it's kind of hit and miss on that count. And I'll walk through how these work. I'll do a demo of a scan in a few minutes, but just some options for you out there. There's, if you're an iPhone user or an iPad user, you can use the Notes app that comes with your phone. And in addition to just allowing you to keep notes for yourself, you can also scan a photo. You just open up the little camera icon in that app, and it will give you the option of just taking a picture or actually scanning something. I think it is sort of optimized across the board, so it's not specifically designed for photos. You can scan documents too, but that is an option for you. Google Photo Scan is probably, I would say that it gets you the sharpest scan of anything out there, but it's also a little more cumbersome to use. And I'll show you that in a second. It takes a while to just get the hang of it. And it took me a while. It's just coordination and everything else, because you really are scanning specific areas of the photo one by one to get that really clean copy. PhotoMine is a app that used to be free, and they just, I would say maybe 6-8 months ago, converted to a paid model of $10 a month or $40 a year. So, and it did a pretty nice job when I used it. I did not upgrade to the paid version, but I did use the free version. And then PicScanner is $4. And I have been pretty happy with it as well. It was worth the $4 investment just to download it straight from the App Store to my phone. So the way these work, I'm going to give you an example of a couple of them. I'm going to share my phone screen here. And again, this might be handy when you just have maybe 1 or 2 photos that you're wanting to scan. All right, so let's start with photo scan right there. And what I have to do, here's an old photo I took in Hawaii back in the 90s. And believe it or not, I took this with one of those portable cameras you used to, or disposable cameras you used to be able to buy. They may still sell those, I don't know. Then I went and got it developed, but I'm going to click on this little white button here to start the scan. And when I do that, it brings up this open circle in the center and these white circles on each corner. And I just move my phone so that each, so that that center open circle goes over each of those closed circles. And there's my scan. So that was fairly quick, but I actually had to practice to be able to do it that fast. It was a little bit cumbersome at first. So this is absolutely free. It's a Google product. So you can look for that. It's just to show you again, it doesn't really have a lot of, if you look for the app on your app store, it doesn't necessarily have a lot of Google branding on it. Here you can see Google with all its four basic colors. You don't see that here, but it is Google's scanning product. Now, once you scan that, it's saved to your phone, and you can do anything you want with it from there. Keep it on your phone, or even edit it on your phone. But the other app I'll point out to you is, I'll do this little barn photo, is Pic Scanner. And this one's a little simpler to use. So you just go down to the computer here, or to the computer, to the camera here, and it'll bring you up this little aperture symbol. And you just hold it over the phone. Now you'll see here, I'm getting a lot of ambient light there, a lot of glare. So I've got a lamp here. Maybe if I turn that off, I won't get as much. But this is where sometimes you run into a little bit of problem. So I can then check this out. I can say use, and there's that photo that I've scanned. And I can rotate it like that. But what else is nice is that I can edit it a little bit. So if I wanted to, say, trim it, I could trim it down a little bit just by grabbing one of these corners like that and changing what is in the photo. It's basically cropping it. And I can also hit enhance, and that will just brighten the picture a little bit, maybe illuminate the colors a little bit more. And then I also have this option here called effects. And this can help me do all kinds of things to it. I could say adjust the hue here. Or I could go over here and make this a little sharper. And I can also make it a little more colorful by hitting on vibrance. And then when I'm done, I just hit save. And to save it to my phone, I would just hit export. And it gives me the option here of adding a caption to it if I want. So some of these old photos, just to make sure you remember where they were taken, or when they were taken, you could put a caption in here, or you can just exclude them. But once you do that, you've got this saved on your camera roll. So just something to use if you want to make a quick scan. That one that I just used, that was the one that's $4, and the Google scan is free. Okay, any questions on those? No. Okay. All right, well, let me just give you a summary here. Scanning old photos into digital format allows you to preserve them so that they're still there in digital format in case the physical copies get damaged or just get old and crinkly. You can scan photos at retail outlets or the library, or have a scanning service take care of them for you. You can scan pictures at home using a photo scanner or all-in-one printer, or a mobile app using your smartphone.